Hi everyone. Brian from the Hypothetically Brian here. What is this? Run, Hide, Fight is Die Hard, but it's a pro-gun school shooting movie produced by The Daily Wire. That's right, Ben Shapiro is jumping into the world of entertainment, hoping to create edgy, entertaining, awesome movies that won't mock your values. And producing movies and TV shows that take you seriously and that don't take advantage of your viewership to promote leftist causes. For a person who is so obsessed with logic as Shapiro, I'm not seeing the rationality of his mission statement here. When you say you're making movies that take people seriously, what do you mean by that? You'd think it'd have to do with the taking advantage of your viewership thing. After all, propaganda is characterized by the aim of objectifying your audience to a degree that you override their rational autonomy. But he readily admits these movies exist to, down the line, inculcate people into conservative culture and values. What, he thinks it's not okay to propagandize in the name of leftist causes, but it's perfectly fine to do so for conservative ones? Yes, he does. He's just asking you to trade one propagandizing agenda for the other, and then cries like a baby when critics don't like this movie even though he made it to piss people off. He's a spineless loser who's just as much of a manipulative enemy of the people as the neoliberal media he hates. This is obvious to anyone who understands who Ben Shapiro is. I do not like Ben Shapiro. I would go so far to say he is one of my least favorite people alive right now. But as much as I do not like him, I hate the idea of unnecessarily hating a movie for things it isn't guilty of even more. Regardless of what Ben might think, there is plenty to criticize this movie for whether you're liberal or not. I think the biggest problem with Run, Hide, Fight is the tone. The whole movie is uncomfortable because it's Ben Shapiro using costly national tragedies as a vehicle to live out his porta-dummy right-wing fantasies. It takes itself kinda seriously, but the rest of the movie makes that so difficult. There's a severe nosedive from the moment the school shooters show up because Ben just can't help himself. It is naturally filled with cringy moments that bluntly communicate political talking points the Daily Wire want you to remember. It's not enough the school shooters pretty much look into the camera and say, "What can the security guard do? He does not carry a gun." They have to show the guy crying and pee his pants. I'm not kidding, the ringleader of the shooters actually says trigger warning as they start attacking people. Movies that will take you seriously. If you strip the movie of its ethos, which is something we do not owe the film by the way, it is a generic clone of Die Hard. This film is not the cheapest looking thing in the world. Compare it to that new Black Christmas remake, and Run, Hide, Fight is far superior when it comes to production value, but it's still below average in its presentation. A bad effect here, some poor lighting there, one shot was noticeably out of focus, and they gave this one guy an MP40. I guess my man got lost on his way to the Eastern Front. Every character exists inside a neat little box with no development. The dialogue only seems to further their single purpose and role in the story. For all the shooter leaders' apostolic Joker impression monologues about, "I'm actually a sad boy. You said I'd never amount to anything. The system failed me, so now I'm a school shooter. Also, I hate social media." You're clearly supposed to find him cool in a backhanded way, but all I see is a self-insert for how Ben Shapiro sees himself. "Yeah, he's really cutting to the heart of the matter. His harsh exterior is masking the hard truths nobody wants to admit. The fact that people like this exist is really our fault because we buy into the liberal media." I don't think they understand in order for an audience to take the politics seriously, the filmmakers must first take the subject matter and plot seriously. If you're dismissive with nuance, nobody but the choir is gonna listen to your preaching. Die Hard in a school shooting is an inherently exploitational idea, but if you ignore everything that makes Die Hard a cut above hundreds of other action movies, you stand even less of a chance of making it work. There are many sources of tension in Die Hard, but two of the bigger ones include John McClane being completely out of his element, and forced to fight because he can't leave. He was a relatable everyman, and this prods us to consider what we would do in his situation. Instead, Run, Hide, Fight stars this girl who got the role, if I had to guess, because Florence Pugh told them no. She hunts with her ex-military father, so she knows how to shoot. Hunting is seen as a generally badass hobby by conservatives. If anyone at this school is gonna fight off school shooters, it's her. There is also absolutely nothing keeping her from running away. Throughout almost the entire movie, she has the chance to leave, but chooses not to? How do you make a Die Hard clone where the protagonist is the one constantly putting themselves back into danger, Ben? Did you forget the first word of your movie's title is RUN? Are you encouraging vigilantism? You want some spindly Daily Wire subscriber to get his head blown off because he was trying to be a hero? Probably not, but I should never, even for a second, have to debate in my head whether or not your portrayal of how to handle a school shooter is more or less tasteful than 13 Reasons Why's. When the kids that actually run away do so, the actors can barely summon a brisk jog. You should be running as fast as you possibly can. There were so many instances where I yelled at the screen, "You're in a school shooting," where the characters displayed a lack of urgency in what they were doing. In the rare moments where it's not shoving some kind of obnoxious, politically coded moment at you, it's fairly straightforward. It even sometimes summons bits of serviceable thrills. I joke around, but Isabel May's lead performance is quite spirited, actually. She successfully sells part of a role where, for most actresses, that would be impossible. Run, Hide, Fight is kind of embarrassing. Ben Shapiro and his cronies wanted to make a movie that's as inflammatory, pig-headed, and mean-spirited to those who disagree with their politics as possible, and I mean, it worked. Congratulations! You're basically on the level of a 6-year-old bully beaming with pride because he kicked over a kid's sandcastle and made him cry. Only the sandcastle is mourning of an ongoing national crisis that costs us children and educator lives by the thousand. I'm giving Run, Hide, Fight a 3 out of 10, but I'm not done talking about it just yet. Ben Shapiro is really invested in this culture war stuff. He's doubling down on the claim that Run, Hide, Fight is only getting bad reviews because critics are all liberals. First of all, I am not a liberal, so how are you gonna facts and logic your way around my review? It's one of those movies like Gotti, where the producers say audiences loved it, but if you go check the accounts making these reviews, suspiciously, Run, Hide, Fight is the only film they've ever rated, almost like people aren't reviewing the film based on whether or not it's good. Critics are obsolete. What we need is incredibly easy to manipulate community-driven platforms to tell us what movies are good because critics are too political. And we all know audiences are completely free of political agendas that might lead them to spam movies that don't deserve them with positive ratings. Quality control? Educated perspective? What's that? Yes, people are going to bring their personal perspective to their criticism of art. That is what critics do. And sometimes that means they're going to bring their political opinions to it, because whether it's policy or filmmaking, people are going to make decisions based on their frame of reference and how they've experienced the world. Never mind, you'll never catch Shapiro calling someone out for liking the film only because of its politics, but he's also a terrible person to listen to about film opinions anyway. If I shouldn't get my politics from film critics, why should I take my film criticism from political analysts? This is him ignoring the shut up and dribble rhetoric his side of the aisle clearly agrees with. How can you not see this guy is a fraud? Let me put it in a language he and his fans can understand.
Let's say, hypothetically, you made a film. And let's say, for the sake of argument, it is a bad one. And since you are the producer and exponent of its financial agenda, you therefore cannot be trusted to make a truly objective statement on whether or not the film is, in fact, good or bad. And even if you could, it is not to your benefit to say the film is bad. Am I not correct? Let's also say that the film concerns itself with matters of politic and a self-admitted act of defiance on your part towards leftist media. Is it unfair to say, then, that the film is intrinsically based on your own political beliefs, which you already believe are good, otherwise you would not have them? But the reality is your film does not do well critically, which you then immediately see as an attack on your politics rather than the film's actual quality. But is it not a film critic's job to consider whether or not a film is good? Given your alliance to the film's financial and political agendas makes your perspective unreliable, is it not impossible to conclude that you just made a bad film? Also, did you know my wife is a doctor?